Are these people qualified welders?
Some of them are, and some of them ain't.
What is the connection between nuclear safety and union corruption? This week's Jack Anderson Confidential reveals the shocking story of how the Boilermakers Union allowed unqualified workers to build the nuclear reactor at 3 Mile Island. And you'll meet Gary Acker, an American mercenary who spent 7 years in an Angolan prison. Don't miss Jack Anderson Confidential.
Two-thirds of my stomach removed. All 12 ribs on my left side of my body have been surgically removed. I've got 1 lung, 1 kidney.
This man, one of 200,000 Americans removed without cause from Social Security disability, a victim of an overzealous bureaucracy.
Everybody ought to know that we're willing to fight for 8 or 10 more years and lose more of our people because we have the determination and the will to survive.
Lebanon. Will we become mired in another Vietnam? An exclusive interview with one of the closest advisors to the new Lebanese president. Congressional staffers collect food for the poor as hard times hit the nation's capital. These stories coming up next on Jack Anderson Confidential. Now from Washington, here is Jack Anderson.
The Capitol Dome is an inspiring sight in the morning light. In the full sun, it projects a look of pure whiteness. Yet the dome is really gray enamel. The men and women who labor beneath the dome have also acquired a gray morality. Most are honorable men and women of impressive ability and decorum. Yet shabbiness in things small and large is widespread. The Senate has appointed an ethics committee to keep the shabbiness under control. The chairman is Senator Malcolm Wallop, a Wyoming rancher, a man of wealth and power. He sits in judgment on the ethics of others. This is a report on the ethics of Senator Wallop. The story has its locale in the forests of his native Wyoming, near Jackson Hole. This is the gateway to the majestic Grand Teton and Yellowstone National Parks. A controversy has now erupted here. Should the rugged beauty of this place be spoiled by gas wells? Clarine Law owns several hotels and restaurants in Jackson Hole. Industrial development, she fears, would hurt her town.
I'm interested in the quality of life I have in Jackson Hole and that I have for my family. My children, my grandchildren, I want it left like that. And I'll make money longer. If it's money we're talking about, I'll make it longer by the tourist trade than I ever will from the short-term development of a field. And I'm not interested in money from that standpoint. I'm interested in the quality of life in Jackson Hole.
The endangered land is a 25,000-acre mountain site located about 13 miles southwest of Jackson. In these woods, the elk and the moose graze. But Getty Oil says the area holds about 300 billion cubic feet of natural gas, worth about $1 billion on today's market. So Getty wants to drill for gas. Senator Wallop has introduced legislation which would permit Getty Oil to do just that. Yet Wallop was originally elected with environmental support. Why would the senator turn his back on the environmentalists who helped to elect him? Well, I tried in vain to get his answer. I held up the story until he got back from Puerto Rico so he could explain. I notified his office that I wanted to know why he changed his views. Finally, I sent my associate Greg Rushford to Denver to try to catch the senator at a speaking engagement. Wallop promised to respond after his speech. But instead, well, you can see what happened.
Senator, I would reconsider. I think it's a very fair question and very reasonable, and we'd like to have your answer.
See you. Thank you so much. Bye. Meanwhile, I assigned a reporter, Jock Hatfield, to investigate the senator's financial records. For at least 4 years, the senator has been collecting oil royalties from a subsidiary of Getty Oil Company. This has averaged around $20,000 a year. Wallop has also been delivering paid speeches to oil groups that have an interest in exploiting the land near Jackson Hole. His lecture income last year was $25,000. And there's more. Political action committees from the oil and gas industry donated more than $115,000 to his re-election campaign this year. Now, the documents reveal nothing that's illegal, but not everything that's legal or licensed is ethical. The chairman of the Senate Ethics Committee should care about more than legality. He should also be concerned about propriety. When I return, a report on why Social Security will remove over 500,000 people from the rolls.
Look, if you're an investor who's tired of being too late when investments are heading up, too late when they're heading down, look ahead. Look into Barron's. Every week, Barron's gives you page after page of useful investment information, days, weeks, even months ahead. Every week, 34 pages of market statistics, in-depth studies of companies, a dividends and earnings alert on all New York Stock Exchange and Amex stocks, exclusive analyses covering the whole world of investing. All you need to know not to be too late. Every week in Barron's. If you call this toll-free number now, you can get 26 weeks of Barron's for just $28. Call right now, and you'll also get free Understanding Technical Forecasting, an informative booklet that shows you how professionals use Barron's. 26 weeks of Barron's plus this revealing booklet for only $28. Look ahead. Look into Barron's. Call 800-453-4006 now before it's too late.
Perhaps the last victims of government economy should be the disabled and the downtrodden. Yet next year, the Social Security Administration will cut off disability payments to 640,000 handicapped people. Some no longer qualify for benefits. Some never did. But 1/3 of them, that's 200,000 helpless people, will lose their money by mistake. It might be a clerical error, a wrong ruling, or some other government goof. Oh yes, the government will apologize and reinstate them. But that will take months, perhaps 15, even 20 months. This will mean tragedy for all those whose lives will be disrupted by bureaucratic incompetence. The Social Security Administration pays out $17 billion a year to disabled workers. Now, this money's not charity. It goes to blind and crippled Americans who earned their health insurance. The payments were deducted from their paychecks while they were working. But in 1980, Congress ordered the Social Security Administration to review all disability claims and weed out the undeserving. The relentless bureaucrats, in their zealousness, have also weeded out many deserving. One man who was suddenly dropped from the disability rolls was Richard Hall of Mount Clemens, Michigan. He's now fighting for reinstatement. Hall used to be a professional jockey, but 14 years ago, his horse crashed into a brick wall. He was left with multiple injuries that ended his career. He had been collecting disability payments until this past spring. Then he was cut off. He told his story to my associate, Jeff Goldman.
As you can see, there's 4.5 inches removed from my left shoulder. The left shoulder is held together with 4 screws and piano wires. I've had multiple surgeries on my abdomen. Got 2/3 of my stomach removed. All 12 ribs on my left side of my body have been surgically removed. I've got 1 lung, 1 kidney. I've had 5 operations on my spine.
What was your reaction when you heard that you were cut off from disability payments?
My first reaction was anger. How could they do this to me? Then my second reaction was fear. Then mental anguish, then depression, then panic. And from the depression, I started drinking heavily. It almost destroyed my marriage and our household.
Hall's 18-year-old daughter, Deborah, is blind. When his disability payment stopped, so did hers.
It's going to be a very lean Christmas in the Hall household. And how do I tell my 5-year-old child that Santa Claus is not going to be able to come this year? The people in Russia receive better treatment than I received from my government. I was never even allowed to ask why. All I received was a piece of paper saying that I was cut off, and that was it.
Social Security also stopped the disability checks to Bill Durgan of Augusta, Maine. Even after he was reinstated, his checks were lost in a bureaucratic maze. He was driven to desperation. 2 weeks ago, it became too much for him.
I just looked at it. I couldn't put my family through anymore. I said, hey, they're a lot better off without this pressure that I'm putting them through. Because financial, it was horrendous as far as the amount of medical bills that was coming through, the pressure on all of these, being in pain, knowing you can't go see a doctor unless you've got a check in your hand. And I just said, they don't need this. And
at that point, what did you do?
I tried to take an overdose. I took an overdose of medication, pain medication.
Intentionally?
Yes.
Why?
Completely depressed. I believe that to look back onto it, I don't know, it's just a depressed mood. And I said, you know, this is not my life. This is not my type of life to be living. No.
I'm just very angry. I'm very angry that I almost lost him, and that the system is so unjust and so unfair, and I wonder how many people have died. I wonder how many people have not made it.
I instructed my associate Indy Badwar to confront the Social Security Administration with the Hall and Durgan cases. He spoke to Deputy Commissioner Paul Simmons in Baltimore, Maryland.
We are not out to make anyone a scapegoat. There's a lot of anger inside the administration that we're being charged with that. The Congress and the Carter administration and the Reagan administration all bear responsibility for making this program work right. So far, the Congress has been unwilling or unable to give us some legislative relief which would allow us to make the system more fair and give quicker justice, and you wouldn't see these horror stories of people hanging out there for 10 months or 12 months waiting to get their benefits restored when we know, just looking at them, that they have been taken off wrongly.
Simmons admits the system has flaws which have victimized some individuals. Well, this is small comfort for the helpless victim. But Senator William Cohen of Maine believes Congress can help.
What we want to do is make sure that in our effort to reduce fraud or mismanagement or waste, that we do so in a careful and compassionate way so that we don't penalize people who really are entitled and are in need of those disability payments. We're insisting upon now is that we continue the review process, that we not interrupt it, but that we not allow the bureaucracy simply to play a numbers game, to take the people out of it, to insulate the decision makers from passion, from seeing people face to face, to making a personal, human evaluation of the nature of the problem, so that you won't have computer foul-ups like we've had with people in iron lungs being terminated, people in body casts being terminated, people with, who are practically blind being terminated, people who, in desperation, attempt to commit suicide, and some who do commit suicide.
The disability program has its cheats, but the solution is not to penalize the innocent. Who's responsible for robbing the crippled and the blind of their rightful insurance? Well, Congress and the Social Security Administration blame each other. Meanwhile, people are pushed to the edge of despair. Now, these are records from the locked files of the Social Security Administration. They contain some grim reading. Now, this one talks about a Detroit man who was notified that his disability payments had been terminated. He called the office and pleaded, I'm quoting, "If you stop these benefits, you'll have a dead man on your hands." Afterwards, he jumped off a bridge into onrushing traffic. In Lansing, another man committed suicide. His daughter blamed undue harassment by the disability office. And here's another report from Michigan. The region has had reports of 5 actual or attempted suicides allegedly triggered by continuing investigations. And there are more, too many more. These may be statistics to the bureaucrats, but to someone, they were flesh and blood. 2 families like the Halls and Durgans are a tragedy. 200,000 families are a national disgrace. When I return, an exclusive interview on the U.S. predicament in Lebanon.
This is the number that takes you places you might never go, shows you things you might never see, brings you face to face with beauty. This is the number that brings you Smithsonian Magazine. This is the number that shows you the lives we led, the lives we lead, the life around us. This is the number that brings you Smithsonian Magazine. Call this toll-free number for your year's subscription to Smithsonian. 12 monthly issues for $17. What's more, you'll automatically become an associate member of the Smithsonian Institution, eligible for travel benefits and book and gift discounts. Nature, art, science, history, our whole world. There's no other magazine like Smithsonian.
This is the number that brings you 12 monthly issues of Smithsonian Magazine for only $17. 800-453-4808. That's 800-453-4808. Phone now, toll free. A whole world is waiting for you.
If you have to wait a week for business news, maybe it's not news anymore. The Wall Street Journal gives you today's business news today, so you can use it today.
Get all the business news you need when you need it. Get the Wall Street Journal. Delivered every business day for 6 months for $47. Just 37 cents a day. Phone toll free 800-453-4806. That's 6 months, $47, only 37 cents a day. Phone 800-453-4806 now.
Lebanon has become an American story. It's the only place in the world where U.S. troops are on combat status. They're part of a peacekeeping force. But in this unforgiving region of the world, peace has been elusive. Last August, I met with this man, Bashir Gemayel. He was head of the Christian forces in Lebanon. A few weeks after we met, he succeeded in winning the presidency. His bold, charismatic style and dedicated, loyal following persuaded the United States that he could do the extraordinary job of ridding Lebanon of foreign occupying forces, the Palestinians, Syrians, and Israelis. He was assassinated 20 days after his election. With his death went the brightest hope of peace in Lebanon. And now, Israeli, Syrian, and PLO occupiers seem to have hardened their determination to lay claim to parts of Lebanon. Fighting occurs almost daily. In Bashir Gemayel's place, his brother Amin was elected president. This man, Alfred Mahdi, was Bashir Gemayel's man in Washington. He was one of Bashir's closest friends and most influential advisors. Now he's serving the same role with President Amin Gemayel. I asked Mahdi about America's deepening involvement in Lebanon. First, I wanted to know whether President Reagan had agreed to commit more troops there.
Jack, this request was actually given a long time ago when the president visited the United States. He showed interest that he would like to increase the number of the Marines. And at that time, the reaction was pretty positive. Now the president have come up and made it a little bit more formal, and he have formally and officially asked the United States for that increase. And to our knowledge, there's no obstacles to the increase of the number, and I think we will get that increase. We're positive that it will happen.
How dangerous is it for the Marines in Lebanon? Are they likely to get shot at?
I don't think there is a lot of danger for them, because the Marines are going to areas which, after the foreign forces pulls from that area and after you gather all the weapons, as is the case in Beirut right now. So there's no direct danger that it's going to be a hit between the forces there. I mean, there's always a danger of a bomb exploding between here and there, but I don't think there's really direct danger on the Marines. And you have to keep in mind that what they're doing now is really getting that country back together, so that for getting stability in Lebanon will be a first step for stability and peace in the region. So they're in a peace in a peace mission than anything else, and they're loved by the people. They're well respected. I think the Marines, they're feeling very much at home in Lebanon.
How long are they going to stay? How long is this going to take?
Well, we're hoping around a year. After that, the Lebanese armed forces could really take over. It should be maybe a little bit more than a year, but it's around a year.
Is there a danger that the United States is going to become so deeply involved that it'll become entrenched in Lebanon?
Lebanon is a test. I think not only for Lebanon, but it's for the region. Everybody is looking for how would the United States solve the Lebanese problem. And I think after that solution, then you would see a lot of even radical Arab countries looking for the United States for help, because then they know that the United States means business. They know they'll stick to their friends, which is something that haven't done for the last 8 years, except when Reagan came to power. So the people of the region are very anxious for the United States really to succeed in solving the Lebanese problem. If they fail to do so, I think this will not be only a catastrophe over Lebanon, but over U.S. interest in the region.
Well, the Soviet Union must resent this this influence that the United States already is beginning to exercise in that area of the world. Have the Soviets made any overtures to President Gemayel?
Well, I think the Soviets have very much interest in the region. Their interests have suffered a lot after the Israeli invasion into Lebanon. Till now, I think the Soviet Union is busy in their own internal affairs, although they have been pretty active even before President Gemayel took office. I think what we should expect, especially after Andropov came to power, is an active policy towards President Gemayel and towards Lebanon, and I would go a step further and say even towards Israel.
Will Syria and Israel ever pull their troops out of Lebanon?
Well, we feel very positive about it. We feel that they both would leave. As I said, the momentum have started. We will need help. It's not easy, but we are determined. We are determined to really get all foreign forces out of our country. We have fought for 8 years, Jack. We paid a very high price to reach where we are. And I think everybody ought to know that we're willing to fight for 8 or 10 more years and lose more of our people because we have the determination and the will to survive.
Today, Lebanon has become a U.S. protectorate. It's now up to the United States to bring peace and stability to this volatile place. The last place American troops went to establish peace was Vietnam. For the hungry and homeless, some congressmen give speeches, but their aides offer food and clothing. The story when I return. The latest surge in unemployment set off dozens of speeches on Capitol Hill. There's been much talk about the hungry and homeless. But a few concerned staff members became impatient with all the talk. They decided to do something. Well, they've organized their own charity drive. Each Thursday morning, a wagon pulls up to the Wyoming House office building to collect home-baked food, packaged goods, and bags of clothing. At first, the word was spread from one congressional aide to another. Later, a Dear Colleague letter went out from Iowa Congressman Berkeley Bedell's office. My associate, Jerome Reed, spoke with one of Bedell's aides, Nancy Payne.
As an individual citizen, there's very little that one can do for these people, but yet you walk around this city as a citizen and you see the need, and trying to get it going as a group, I think, is important. So it gives us as individuals a way to help see a need and take care of it.
Capitol Hill isn't the only place the wagon stops for donations. Day and night, the donations come in to Martha's Table, a nonprofit organization. It operates a soup kitchen under the direction of Dr. Veronica Mays.
Every single day we serve more than 600 sandwiches to the homeless, destitute people in the parks. And so that means that you have to find bread and things to make sandwiches, and it's very difficult.
What is the support of the congressional staffers meant to the program?
It's a great help. We don't have to buy the things, and they're always fresh, delicious variety of sandwiches, and other things also. They give desserts, fruits, the paper products that we need. They help us a great deal.
The wagon makes its rounds every night, fair or foul weather. One stop is Lafayette Park across from the White House. The homeless line up for hot soup, sandwiches, sweet rolls, coffee, and tea. For those who live on the streets, this may be their only meal of the day.
Since I found out about it, I'll be glad to come down and get you a few sandwiches, you know. And I think this means a lot to each and every one of us out here.
Congressmen have been quick to give speeches, but slow to respond to the needs of the poor. Yet not everyone on Capitol Hill is indifferent. Hard times have brought out the humanity of many people. While some people go hungry, hard times are bringing other people together. Next week, a report on a scandal in the nuclear industry. Why nuclear plants are unsafe. I'm Jack Anderson in Washington.
Jack Anderson Confidential is a Jack Barry and Dan Enright production in association with Able Productions.
I said, hey, they're a lot better off without this pressure that I'm putting them through. Because financial, it was horrendous as far as the amount of medical bills that was coming through, the pressure on all of these, being in pain, knowing you can't go see a doctor unless you've got a check in your hand. And I just said, they don't need this.
And at that point, what did you do?
I tried to take an overdose. I took an overdose of medication, the pain medication.
Intentionally?
Yes.
Why?
Completely depressed. I believe that to look back onto it, I don't know, it's just a depressed mood. And I said, you know, this is not my life. This is not my type of life to be living. No.
I'm just very angry. I'm very angry that I almost lost him, and that the system is so unjust and so unfair, and I wonder how many people have died.
Promotional consideration provided by World Airways. From the West Coast to the East Coast, across the Atlantic to London and Frankfurt to Hawaii, fly World Airways, the airline for people who hate to waste money.